Hey, what's going on, everyone? Dave for Kind of Watch. So, guy has an update on a significant nor'easter that is expected to impact portions of the East Coast as we get into the last couple of days of this week and into this weekend. We're talking about some major impacts, which definitely could bring some storm surge, very intense flooding, but also definitely some very strong wind gusts. We've got all the details coming. Joining me here on this information on again that nor'easter we mentioned earlier that is starting to take shape, which you can actually see it in the bottom right hand side of your screen. So I'll be able to circle that as we get started here in today's update. So make sure to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button before you get started here, and let's get rocking and rolling. So two things going on. One, as we look at our weather radar at the moment, is we do have our nor'easter, or our low pressure system, beginning to swirl out here, producing some showers and thunderstorms down here in the southeast coastline. Now you may think, well, it doesn't look too impressive right now, so it probably won't be anything crazy. Well, it's expected to strengthen over the next couple of days and really bring some significant impact so as it moves north. So we'll be breaking all that down. We also do have some tropical moisture making its way into the southwest United States. Still some flood watches going out for those areas, so be sure to turn around and do not drown if you do get impacted by, again, those heavy rains that could lead to some roads being flooded out. Alright, so we move on here to the National Weather Service forecast homepage. You can see that as we get started here, take a look at your alerts and advisories. We do actually have some flood watches still, including portions of southern Utah, as well as southwestern Colorado, central and northern Arizona, and portions of southern California. So make sure that you are, again, staying safe out there, and that you are being cautious of those possible flooded roadways. We also do have winter storm watches going on for portions of western Montana. Definitely something new as far as this year goes. But winter is just around the corner, and we're already starting to see some cold enough conditions for some snow in those upper elevations especially. So if you happen to be in some of these areas, I mean, there's a chance we could get a couple inches of snow. So we will talk about that in a future update. We also do have freeze warnings going out for portions of northern North Dakota. And speaking of freeze warnings, we have a ton of freeze warnings that were just issued today for portions of New England as well as the Northeast. So really all the way from coastal Maine down through Vermont, New Hampshire, and along the southern New England coastline in this dark blue shade. This is where we're talking about, again, those freeze warnings where temperatures could get below freezing at times over the next couple of days, which, again, if we do get any standing water in areas, that could actually freeze over. So just make sure that you are, paying attention to that, especially if you happen to be a farmer or just growing crops. There could definitely be crop failure just due to how cold it is going to be. So, once again, keep that in mind. But we also do have some frost advisories going out for areas in this, baby blue shade. Really from New Jersey down through Pennsylvania, Maryland, up towards portions of central and northern Ohio, Indiana, and southern Michigan. Alright, so that should do it for our alerts. We move on now here at the GFS 18Z run. So again, this is the latest GFS, the evening run that just came out. We're going to be breaking down this coastal storm. So you can see as we get into today, obviously we get that low pressure center to start, organizing just off the coast of Florida, and you can see it is right around 1,004 millibars by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. But you also notice that the kind of the core of the storm, or at least the rain shield, is starting to expand. So the storm is getting larger and producing rain over a bigger area, and at this point it's going to gear up to start moving north, and that's exactly what happens here. We do see the storm jet north, and it already becomes a 996 millibar low, or it might be 998, but already sub 1,000 millibar low by October 11th, which is going to be Sunday, or this actually should be Saturday night. So this is Saturday night, 8 p.m. You have likely tropical storm force winds battering the outer banks. You also do have some very significant heavy rainfall here, which is going to lead to lots of flash flooding. So do not sleep on the Carolinas with this event. I really do think that even though it's going to be early in the storm's life, we're still going to get some pretty major impacts for those areas. And I really would not rule out the chance of seeing some tropical storm force winds, as well as some very heavy wind-driven rain. But as we get into Saturday night and eventually Sunday morning, this is 2 a.m. Sunday, you can see the storm is beginning to creep to the north. Again, you're starting to see those first raindrops fall in southern New England, and boom, this thing just develops a huge shield of rain rain. This is the thing that all the models have been hinting at, is that the storm is going to develop very significantly on its northern side, and that's exactly what's going to be moving right into New England. So that northeasterly wind is going to be pushing all of this precipitation and moisture inland to the point where we're going to see very heavy rain, potentially torrential rain at times, across portions of New Jersey and Long Island, as well as the rest of southern New England and northern Delmarva. You can see those isobars, these little lines here that show up on your screen. As they get tighter, that's showing more of a stout low-level jet wrapping around that center of circulation, which will obviously lead to some very gusty and potentially damaging winds. But this continues to move north, deep into a 997 millibar low, looking very organized here. And at this point, once again, it is still pounding southern New England. But I do want to note that I do think that there is a worst of the storm, and it is not expected at this time to move over land. I do think that the exact worst part of the storm is going to stay off the coast. Now, the really worrying and concerning part of this is how close it's going to get, because wherever you see these purples, these reds, and these yellows, this is where we're talking about torrential rainfall, which will obviously lead to significant flash flooding if it makes its way over land. But you gotta remember, this is also going to be where the strongest of winds are going to blow through. So we're going to be talking about that in a more detailed perspective in a minute. But again, just because of how close that is from the GFS to southern New England, we really need to keep an eye on that. But the GFS continues to push this to the north, and it obviously batters the coastline still with very heavy rain all across southern New England. That does expand into the rest of the northeast. Now, a lot of the models at first were kind of depicting the storm to go kind of like this and edge out the coastline, and then maybe go a little bit farther off to the east. This time, I'd say all the models pretty much have this do a loop right back into land. And at this point, there's really no scenario where this doesn't make a technical landfall. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty gnarly soaker here for most of the Northeast. And then by the time we get into next week, it moves on out. All right, so that is the latest output from the GFS. Now, I do want to take a look at the wind gust projection from the GFS here. This is your pretty much the main hazard or factor, if you will, in this storm becoming so dangerous. But you can see already as that low pressure center continues to organize down here in the southeast coastline, you're already getting 30 to 40 mile per hour winds out here on the Georgia and South Carolina coastline. So I do think earlier on there is, once again, going to go back to what I said earlier, there is still going to be the threat for some pretty significant impacts. And those winds continue to ramp up. And again, I don't want people to sleep on the Carolina Outer Banks, because you are going to see some very intense winds. Again, 45 mile per hour wind gusts, which is above tropical storm force. And at times, we actually get a few glimpses here of up to 60 mile per hour winds on the Outer Banks. So we'll actually zoom in on that area for you guys here. And again, just a very concerning scenario here showed by the GFS. But you can see, again, some very significant winds just south of Virginia Beach, even Virginia Beach gusting to about 40 miles per hour. But anywhere in this purple, or especially this red, or even the gold shade, that's where you're talking about the neighborhood of 40 to 60 mile per hour winds, which again is pushing tropical storm status, or tropical storm force. So very, very significant wind gusts are on the table here, I'd say, for the Carolina coastline. And then the storm continues to work its way up to the north, and this thing really starts to rip, and it brings some significant gusts close to hurricane force along the Jersey coast, as well as portions of Delmarva here. So already you're getting 30 to 40 mile per hour winds in New England, but you're going to get a very windy Saturday night, and by the time you wake up Sunday morning, you are going to be having a very loud storm just on your doorstep here. Again, we're seeing widespread areas receiving 50 to 60 plus mile per hour winds. So we'll finally zoom in here on southern New England so you guys can get a much better look at what areas exactly need to be on the lookout. And again, you see that storm coming up through, or at least from the south, and this is as we're getting into 8 a.m. on Sunday. So again, you're waking up on Sunday to 40 mile per hour winds across most of southern New England, but if you're farther south, you're waking up to likely 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, and those will just increase as you get into your day. And you can see the winds really start to rip out here across New Jersey. Watch the Jersey coastline here receiving 40 to 60 mile, or excuse me, 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, especially towards the Long Branch, Toms River, and just the entire Jersey Shore area. This is definitely going to be one of the more harder hit areas and regions from this entire storm in a wind perspective. But I'm telling you guys, going back to what I said about the strongest part of the storm, you can see that extremely clearly on the wind gusts. Look south of Long Island. This pocket of gold and brown, this is where you're talking about 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. You are getting very close to hurricane force wind gusts in that area. Okay, so if that does end up making its way over land, saying that this storm is going to go a little bit farther inland, that's going to be a really big problem for our folks in New England, and it kind of does for a second here on the 18Z GFS. And I mean, New York City, this may honestly be one of the most hardest hit cities, and most affected communities on the entire East Coast, because you're going to get a period as we get into Sunday evening and Sunday night where we could be talking about potentially 50 to 60 plus mile per hour winds. When I say plus, I mean it, because there is a chance, a genuine chance, that if we do see a higher end scenario like what the GFS is showing here, we could be talking about a lot of areas receiving wind gusts well over 60 miles per hour. Again, Long Branch gusting to 61, and then a lot of Long Island, so Nassau and Suffolk County, I mean, we're talking about wind gusts getting very close to 70 miles per hour on the South Shore. So very significant storm system moving in. You can see Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket also receiving some significant wind gusts. Montauk, everyone on the east end receiving 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. So very significant event, but that's going to hold as we get later and later into the night. And then you can see that the strongest of winds will lift off to the north, but you're still going to be talking about wind gusts likely of 40 to 50 miles per hour across the entire region as we get into the middle of the night, Sunday into Monday. So very impactful storm coming, but these are going to be some damaging winds. These are definitely going to be able to knock down tree limbs, some old trees, power lines are going to be knocked down. I really do think that this has the potential to cause extensive power outages for quite a few areas. Alright, and so another way we can look at where we think the strongest of winds are going to occur, this is your 850 millibar jet stream. So basically this shows you how strong the lower level jet is, which is a term that I use a lot in my videos when talking about how strong the wind is. And basically this is the same thing, but you're looking at the wind speed about 1,000 feet above your head. So this is just above the surface here, these winds. Look how strong that lower level jet is going to be. This is going to be pushing 80 knots, which is considered extreme, very, very strong. This is a very tight system. Alright, but you can see the strongest low level jet is perfectly placed over Long Island and really all of southern New England back into northern New Jersey. So if we do see again that strongest pocket of winds make its way a little bit farther north away from the core of the system, these are the areas that are going to be getting hit. So, the closest you are to that center of circulation, the likely the stronger winds you're going to get. Alright, but it really does look like, again, we're going to see a pretty intense lower level jet, again, streak across this region, and then finally the storm completely fizzles out over the next couple of hours after this scan here, or this time frame. But again, very, very fast moving lower level jet, and a way you can look at that and determine how fast it's moving is you can actually look up and see how fast the clouds are moving. Usually when you get hit by a hurricane or a tropical system, you can notice that the clouds are moving extremely fast. That's exactly what's going to be happening with this event. So if you wake up on Sunday morning and you look up at the clouds, I'm almost guaranteeing you that you're going to see them moving quite fast and quite quick, just because of how strong that low level jet is. So again, this is just one of the ways we could look at to determine how strong wind gusts could get in some different areas. But we move over here to now your National Weather Service blend of all models rainfall forecast. So this is basically a blend of every single computer model that we can get that at least does a rainfall projection, and this basically puts it into one. And so we look at what all the models have basically agreed on, or you should say the model consensus, and you can see that there is quite a lot of rain depicted out here on the Carolina coastline. Notice how we do actually have a couple spots receiving 3 to 6 inches across the Carolina coast, especially up towards the Outer Banks. Again, another area that I really do think we need to watch out for. You see an area of 4 to maybe even 5 inches of rain, again, all on the Outer Banks. So this would bring some very significant impacts when you're also talking about the addition of tropical storm force winds. But you can see really everyone on the immediate coastline is guaranteed about 2 to 4 inches. But there are some areas, again, where we could be talking about closer to 4 to 6 inches, especially up towards southern New England. Again, the Jersey coastline up towards Long Island, all the way out to really, I would say, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. Some of these areas could really end up with higher totals, even down towards, Delmarva. Anywhere in this gold shade, I really do think that there's a possibility of seeing, a couple areas of 4 to 6 inches, potentially all the way up to 7 inches if this does, again, become much more serious than we are expecting. But as far as, how far inland this rain is going to get, well, it's actually going to come pretty far inland, considering that the low-pressure center is going to be moving kind of up like this. You're actually going to get a couple inches of rain all the way back into portions of the interior northeast, pretty much midway into the Carolinas, but Virginia, central and western PA, upstate New York, you could definitely settle for an inch or two, especially if this does wrap itself around back into the northeast. I really do think that towards the end of its life, it could definitely drop an inch or two of rain for those more interior areas. Now we look at the Weather Prediction Center's Day 4 excessive rainfall outlook, so this kind of mirrors what we just looked at. This is a really good tool that we use to depict, what areas need to be on the lookout for excessive rainfall, if you will. And you can see we do have a slight risk for excessive rainfall going up for all of southern New England down through Long Island, I-95, Philadelphia, and coastal Delmarva. Again, anywhere in this yellow shade, this is where we could be talking about some flash flooding and some very heavy rainfall. But even that green shade, that's still a marginal risk. We're also talking about the chance for seeing some excessive rainfall and flooding there. So, again, this is going to definitely present a significant flooding threat just due to the amount of water that's going to be coming down at once, but this is likely going to slow down a little bit as it moves up towards the northeast, and again, the slower it moves, the more water that's going to fall, and I really do think that the models over just the past couple of hours have really started to increase those projected rainfall totals with this storm, so I really do think flooding is going to be a very big issue. But another very big issue is going to be your waves. So I do think storm surge is going to be a possibility with this storm, and I'll tell you why. You can see even down into the Carolinas, we have a very significant pocket of, again, waves up to maybe even 20 feet. But that pocket of very high waves continues to grow, and you can see that our wave direction is going right into southern New England, and you do have a pocket of what looks to be about 15 to 20 foot waves battering the Jersey coast as well as all of really southern New England. So you are going to get lots of water going right into the shoreline, which again could lead to a couple of, or a lot of areas inundated by feet of water. I do think that some significant to possibly even major coastal flooding cannot be ruled out. Again, just off the coast of Long Island, you have 20 plus foot waves. So especially if you are on south facing beaches, this is where all of the water is going to be directed. So when you combine that with the extremely strong damaging winds, you're going to have a very significant situation unfolding here, and I really do think it could be an ugly scene for our folks out here on the immediate coastline of New England. Alright, and so finally, I do also want to look at your NAM 3CAM model for your temperatures. We are talking about that quick freeze and frost that is expected in the northeast. You can see we are going to be likely dipping close to, or if not below freezing in some areas across the northeast. The NAM 3CAM is a little bit lighter on the temperatures, getting down into the 40s, but a lot of areas seeing down here in the mid to lower 50s, or excuse me, 30s. So I definitely do think that that freeze could come alive as we get into the next couple of days, and that will likely happen during the overnight or very early morning hours. Alright, so that's been the video. I hope you guys had a great day and enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you stay safe out there if you are being impacted by the storm, especially on the East Coast. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.